Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Weintraub. I'm Bucks County's District Attorney. Today, we convicted William Korzon for killing his wife, 37-year-old Gloria Korzon, and for profiting from her death, for maintaining the illusion of her life, and for covering up his heinous acts. Were she still alive today, Gloria would be 76 years old. The date of her homicide was the date that she went missing, was March the 6th, 1981. That's almost 40 years ago. Speaking of ages, the defendant will be 83 when he's eligible, first eligible for parole. The defendant will be supervised until he's 91 years old. Gloria will forever be 37. The defendant's conviction is as the result of no less than inspirational work by Warrington Township Police Department, in particular Detective Bernie Schaefer, who stands with me today, who revived a dormant case, a cold case homicide. But he didn't do it by himself. He also had excellent partnership and collaboration by the Bucks County detectives, in particular, Detective Dave Hanks, who worked side by side with Detective Schaefer once they brought us this case to consider to reopen, to breathe new life into. I'd also like to thank the FBI evidence recovery team, for we literally left no stone unturned in this case and actually had to dig up a basement in Korzon's old residence. Much thanks to the current owners for allowing us to intrude on their lives, and to the Northampton Township Police Department for providing some expert analysis. I'd also like to give a special thanks to the Bucks County Grand Jury, which is a tool that we use in very special circumstances, which empowers Bucks County's own citizens who took testimony in this case and made it the viable homicide prosecution that it became. Without them, we would not be standing here today. And finally, I must give credit where credit is due to Chief Deputy Jen Shorn and Deputy District Attorney Chelsea Jackman, who walked this case all the way up to the doors of the guilty plea that we have before you today, using perseverance, creativity, and a tireless pursuit of justice. And it's their dedication, this team's dedication to justice, that allowed us to get this just and fair result for Gloria Korzon and her family. As I stated in an earlier press conference, when we first brought this prosecution, we knew this prosecution was going to be difficult, but we didn't allow difficult to prosecute to discourage us or to excuse us from our obligation to Gloria and to her family to seek justice for them. We didn't wait around hoping that the case was going to improve miraculously after 38 years, because Gloria's family had waited long enough. This incredibly difficult prosecution was difficult for many reasons, but to tick them off until we worked out this plea agreement with the defendant, we had no statement, no confession from the defendant. We had no eyewitness to this crime. We had no murder weapon. And sadly, Gloria Korzon's body was never located. That made this case incredibly difficult. But due to the dedication of the professionals that you see standing with me today, not impossible. But this is the chance that I get to preach a little bit. Until Detective Schaefer took a fresh look at this case, it was sitting high up on a shelf, as many cold cases do, for lack of resources, lack of prioritization, or lack of interest in some cases. But this guilty plea in this case, William Korzon's guilty plea for the killing of Gloria Korzon, encourages police everywhere to take a fresh look at their own cold cases, for we will bring them. This is a great day for law enforcement, for justice. This resolution today gives us all hope in all unsolved cases, especially homicides, for the statute of limitations is often long and does not end. At this time, what I propose to do is I'm going to ask Chief Dan Friel of the Warrington Township Police Department to come forward to say a couple words. I'll come back to the podium in a second. I'll ask Jennifer Potter, Gloria's niece, and her nephew, Scott Kidder, to take the podium to read a statement that they have prepared, and then I'll come back to the podium to answer any questions. So at this point, I'd like to give Dan Friel an opportunity to come say a few words.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning. I guess it's afternoon now. I just wanted to say a few words. It's a sad day for the Gloria's family, the Kidder family. But in the same sense, we also have some relief for you and some closure at this point. And that's what it's all about right now. This case has bothered us. This was our biggest cold case in Warrington Township Police history, and every officer, I'm coming on my 20th year, and every officer coming in and starting in these smaller departments, you know that this case was out there and it was sitting on that shelf. And the officers through the years put a lot of work into this. It wasn't until I became chief in 2016 when Detective Schaefer over here approached me. We wanted to reopen it with new modern techniques, take a fresh look at it, like Matt was saying. And it worked out. We put, just so you guys know, before we could even approach the district attorney or to get to this point to ask for this grand jury, which is what we wanted all along because of the circumstantial case, it took us 2 years to do a thorough in-house investigation and put the pieces together that we've chipped away over the years with different supplemental reports and follow-ups. So to credit to Detective Schaefer for doing that. I will say within a half hour of meeting with district attorney and the chief of trials, that Matt was saying, let's give it a shot, let's go for it. And I just wanted to finish up by saying that we didn't give up. You should never give up. And we took a chance with this, but we wanted to make sure we had enough, which we felt that we could get something solid. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, Chief. You're about to hear from Jennifer Potter. She's going to speak on the realities of domestic violence and that cycle of violence that we are all too familiar with, but about breaking this cycle, about destigmatizing domestic violence, and hopefully what this conviction means to their family. I know you heard their victim impact statement, but perhaps Jennifer's going to speak to that as well. And most importantly, in a general sense, to give victims of domestic violence some hope, because there is hope. Not every case, unfortunately, has to unfold the way Gloria Korzon's did. And if we can send out a message of positivity and hope, that is that if you are suffering from domestic violence, please come forward. Let us help you break this cycle of violence, and we can help you extricate yourself from a dangerous situation. So I'm going to introduce Jennifer Potter, and then I will be able to step back, Jennifer Potter and Scott Kidder, and then I'll be able to step back and take some questions. Jennifer?
On behalf of my family, we'd like to thank the detectives who have made this day happen and never gave up on finding out the truth, bringing our family closure, and bringing the killer to justice. This is a shocking reminder of the harsh reality of domestic violence and how far we have come in prosecuting abusers. Unfortunately, as lives have been lost along the way, victims like Gloria helped pave the way for abusers to be punished properly and saved countless other lives. I can only imagine the fears she must have felt on a daily basis, afraid of the stigma attached to being abused, being told by police to get a hotel room for the night, being made to feel like it was her fault by them asking if she had an Irish temper, and being unable to escape the cycle she was in. My family has waited 38 years for this day, and we again want to thank all the men and women who worked long, diligent hours to finally bring a shred of peace and justice to this family.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Scott. As you just heard from her own mouth, they waited 38 years for this day. Of course, it's too long, but I'm glad we're here. This case is closed, this defendant is convicted, and Gloria's family can hopefully have some peace. I'll take some questions if you have any.
Now, was there any one thing in specific that made you guys open up the case again, and at what point did you actually say, yes, I did it? At what point did that happen?
Frankly, this was through the diligence of Bernie Schaefer. He asked for permission to look at the case. His chief, who's very progressive, Chief Friel, gave him that permission. It's literally like opening up a tomb. You don't know what you're going to find in there. You don't know what's going to be missing, what's going to be desecrated. You have to reconstruct that case from scratch. He did that. He presented it in a very concise, cohesive manner to us. And I think Chief Field's probably right. They convinced us. We said, we have enough to go on here. What's the alternative? Leave the case back on a shelf? Let's give this a shot and try to get justice in this case.
Feeling you had. It's just the guy.
It was more than a feeling. We knew that he did it. We had a lot of the disparate parts that we had to put together, and thanks to the grand jury, an incredible amount of hard work and dedication, we were able to put those parts together to put enough pressure on William Korzon to cause him to want to make this agreement, because he was concerned that he would face additional jeopardy, further jeopardy, if he didn't make this plea offer and make the admissions that he did.
And at what point did he actually say, yes, I did it?
That was earlier this month. We all got together. There was an informal proffer first, as is our custom lately. We asked for an informal proffer from his attorney, Mr. Williams, who you heard from earlier. And we said that if Mr. Korzon would speak consistently to what Mr. Williams said he would say, that we would make an agreement. We had to wrestle with it because, as with any plea negotiation, there's a give and a take here. There's always a lot of sacrifice. But given all of the equities and having waited so long for justice, it was the right and fair resolution in this case. Anybody else?
So it was 7.5 to 15 years. Were there any fines along with that?
I don't think so, no. And candidly, the principle here is that you can't kill somebody no matter how long ago you think you got away with it. We're going to get you if we have enough time and enough resources. We're going to get you.
And he never served time before?
No. First day he entered a jail cell was in April when we grabbed him in York County.
Matt, Ms. Potter kind of touched on some of the comments that were made, and not to blame anybody, but when you look at how domestic violence was handled back in the late 70s and early 80s, and to where we've come now, and when you review this case, kind of, what are your thoughts on that? What do you take away from that?
I think that there was definitely a chilling effect back in the olden days, so to speak, where perhaps people that suffer from domestic violence were even more stigmatized than they are now. We are trying to shine a light on the issue to encourage people to break this cycle, and they have more and more resources than ever before, including our police. They're very understanding. They want to break this cycle more than anybody, and I am positive that what Jennifer Potter said about some of the statements that were made to Ms. Korzon were made, they would never be made in today's day and age, and I'm glad for that. Anybody else? All right, thank you all very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.